exercise. It's quite simple to perform at home. Essentially, I'm going to allow myself to try to fall forward and grip down hard with my forefoot and my arch to help bring myself more upright each time. I'm essentially clamping down and controlling my stability with the arch of my foot and the intrinsic muscles that help make that arch up. Intrinsic foot adductor group, so that's squeezing the toes together. I have a spacer that people use to give themselves pedicures or to paint their nails, and I'm going to squeeze together as hard as I can, hold for approximately 6 seconds, and then release. I want to be sure that I'm not flexing my toes down, which I'd be able to see if I was kind of gripping the ground with my actual toes. Exercise is a secondary neuromuscular control exercise that's opposite to the one we just performed with the toe spacer. This is called your toe abduction exercise, and essentially I'm trying to separate my toes without lifting any of them off the ground. This next exercise is targeting the neuromuscular control pattern in my foot. It's called the piano key exercise, and I'm alternating between 2 foot patterns. With the first pattern, I'm keeping my 4 outside toes planted against the ground firmly and just lifting my large or great toe. With the secondary pattern, keeping my great toe planted and lifting the 4 outside toes together as a complete unit. A bit more advanced, though you can see I could still use some work on it. It's targeting one tiny little muscle, so again we're working on neuromuscular control patterns, but I'm just trying to abduct my pinky or my little toe away from the rest of my toes and keeping it in good control.
Is you pull your toes and grab the towel with your toes as you go. And you continue to bring the towel under your foot until it is as bunched up under your foot as it can possibly go. And then you start again. Okay? And you do that for just a couple of minutes of that a day.
The first consists of asking the patient to apply pressure on the first metatarsal head. What we do not want is for the other toes to bend like claws. We can see that the arch is supported by the intrinsic foot muscles. If we ask the patient to release the muscles, we can see a flattening of the foot. Another way to correct this is by asking the patient to extend the hallux. Tightening the plantar fascia will increase the arch's height by the windlass mechanism. We then ask the patient to contract the intrinsic muscles of his foot in order to keep the arch supported while releasing the first toe. Strong pressure should be applied under the first metatarsal head without gripping the toes. This pressure should be held for 10 seconds and repeated several times a day.
Step 2, if you have a foot that does not line itself up properly, let's say you maybe have some crooked toes or maybe you have a bunion, to help with the lining up of those plantar arch muscles, we like to use a silicone product called Correct Toes. This product actually aligns the toe bones where nature intended and correspondingly aligns those plantar intrinsic muscles to do their best work. It can be any size ball. We prefer a hacky sack size ball. And you put that on the floor in front of you, and essentially the action of this strengthening is you keep your heel level and you pull the ball back towards your heel. Release the ball, pull the ball back towards your heel. So this is, and you can kind of rotate it to different sides of your foot if you want to selectively, maybe you want to selectively strengthen your big toe and you're just going to be working on pulling down on the big toe, or whether or not you want to take a global approach and pull back with all of the toes. This is a very good way of strengthening your plantar arch muscles. Now, some folks say it helps them if they put their hand on top of their knee and correspondingly flex their hand muscles at the same time. One way or the other, as you begin working on this, the muscles in the arch of your foot are going to start to get stronger. Short foot exercises. And I like to do the short foot exercises by grounding the toes against the ground, drop your heel level, and this short foot exercise is an isometric exercise, which means that the the length of the muscle is not going to change that much. It's going to stay fairly similar, but you're going to contract the muscle by gripping with your toes. Now, if you notice, as I grip with my toes, what happens to my arch? This is absolutely the value of strong plantar intrinsic muscles. If your plantar intrinsics are strong and you can flex them, it has a net effect of naturally lifting your arch. This is natural arch support. Sadly, most people in America are doing their athletic activities with their foot in this position, and they never get an opportunity to actually flex their foot. So one of two things would be good to get you going on your path to foot strengthening, either gripping with the ball or the isometric short foot exercise.
What we're going to do is we're trying to pick the toe off the ground, but we're going to try and come up, so we're keeping this on the ground, we're picking up this portion, but the top half is kind of staying curled down a little bit. So we're not quite getting as much of the long muscle to help us pick up. So one of the ways we can zoom in on that a little bit to it. So it's kind of like a little scrunch motion. We come back like so. Making sure most of the work is done from just the foot and you don't get as much of the upper portion coming through. If you feel this lifting or this rolling to the outside like you're trying to pull with your ankle, that means you're trying to grab with all the ankle, with all the calf muscles that run into the ankle, or maybe that long muscle to try and pull into it, which will compromise some of our stability at the big toe. So we want to see, can this work just at the big toe as we come back and forth? And maintain that pressure across here as we form. So you can see, even as we pick that up, it really wants to form that, push down into here and help form that inside of the arch. So this is one of those crucial small muscle points in case we're having some issue building that up, which can have some compromises of the kinetic chain.
While your other toes remain down. Now bring your big toe down while elevating all of your other toes. Perform slowly with a 2-second pause with each repetition. To ensure you are performing this correctly, place a hand under the medial arch of the foot to feel a strong muscle contraction.
Pinky toe and outer edge of the heel are lined up with each other. And then from there, press the big toe into the ground as you lift the others. Do a firm pressure through that big toe and pick up the other toes. You should also be able to just lift the big toe for those who would like to do extra credit. I want to point out something important though. When you do this drill, I would really like to not see excessive amounts of tendons firing through here. If you're a runner, that's going to be really hard to avoid. If you wear flip-flops all day, that's going to be really hard to avoid. And part of why that happens is because you get so strong and tight through here because you're curling your toes into the ground and trying to do this with the floor instead of pushing through the bottom of the foot and using these muscles down underneath here. And
think of pulling the ball of the foot up while keeping your toes long. This is also a good exercise to do for anyone who wants to improve their foot strength with running, weightlifting, yoga, Pilates.
And the ball of your foot on the ground and focus on just using those muscles that spread the toes. Now here comes the tricky part. Once you've warmed up, keeping your heel and forefoot on the ground, you're going to try and move your big toe towards your midline and hold it there for 3 seconds. Don't worry about what the other toes do, just focus on pushing that big toe across. Now many people won't be able to move the toe at all initially, but that's okay. Even thinking about it and seeing a slight twitch is activating the muscle, and you'll get there eventually. Once you've gotten confident abducting your big toe, try doing the same exercise but pushing against some resistance, like here with this light foam block. As you get better, make the objects heavier. Marathon runners should be able to push a 5 kilo weight across the floor. The last thing we're going to practice is activating the entire arch. So with the foot flat, we're going to go from a relaxed arch to an active arch, trying to squeeze all those muscles in the arch, holding for 3 seconds. Doing these every day, especially before exercise, will go a long way to avoiding injury.
So we're going to put a little bit of a pull of the toe inwards like so, so it's going to try and pull it in like that. We're going to try and pull the toe outwards, like so. So we want to maintain a little bit of our tripod, heel. First MTP and fifth NP are all planted as I go back and forth. As you can see, my arch wants to build a little bit as I do this almost. but we don't want to have like more of a gross foot motion going back and forth. So as long as my heel, my first empty piece, stay planted, and the motion is happening at this joint with the toe going back and forth like so, we're going to work. You should feel a little bit of a muscle contraction and fatigue across the inside of the foot through here as we grab it. Or even just try and maintain the toes apart. And then what we can do is just try and maintain the toes apart and then just like push something along the ground. So as I'm pushing here, this is going to want to collapse my toe inward, so I'm just trying to keep it outward. So if you have trouble getting that active contraction, you can just try and say, okay, can I have a decent foot posture and push this along without feeling this cave in and getting the adduction of the great toe moving out like so. Once again, just trying to keep the toe straight right through here. As I push into that, I don't want to see the toe deviate over towards the second like so and collapse as we go back and forth.
Do is curl all your toes forward. Right, good, perfect. So this one's going to take a little bit to wrap your brain around. Okay. So what I want you to do is you're going to keep your toes bent forward. I don't care what happens with these toes, they can come along for the ride. I'm only worried about the big toe. So for right now, what we're going to do is we're going to try to keep the big toe bent, and we're going to raise it up. Let me have it. Raise it up as high as you can without letting it unbend. Okay. So eventually our goal is to be able to get to there. And Sean does this on the foot video, and he is like feet from outer space. He's like an alien. All right. Not many people can do that right off the bat, but he can. Probably because he's from Canada. So we're going to keep these guys bent. Hold that up. Good. So all I want you to do is bring it up. So this is what we're trying to do. And I want you to bring it as high as you can. And if you only get it up like a little tiny bit before it's like starts to unfold, that's totally cool. So you may want to hold a finger there just to kind of assist yourself. That's cool. Now go back down. Don't worry about it. We're going to go in like really small increments.
I didn't feel it all the way.
So here, just to there, and then back. Okay. Here, just to there, and back. So you're going to work eventually, so when I see you again, when you guys come out for Christmas, all right, you guys relax. You're going to be able to do that like no sweat, all on your own.
Okay.
All right? But so that's what you're going to work on. So
that toe up, getting that toe up requires us to get to the short extensor, the extensor hallucis brevis. This is very difficult for a lot of people to do because they can't find this pairing of short extensor, long flexor. They will automatically just go into this pattern right here. They can't seem to isolate themselves out of long extensor and get themselves down into just holding the toe up with the short extensor and then pairing it with the long flexor. You need to be able to have this kind of skill in your foot in order to do this. Long extensor, short flexor, long flexor. So you need to be able to isolate these with a little loop on the end. And what we ask you to do is find the thinnest part of that loop and put it over the tip of the toe. The way we explain it to our patients is just put that thin part over the toenail like a little hat. And then load the tendon. So what this is doing, as you can see, is it's acting like a surrogate long flexor tendon. You can see by the amount of flexion we have at the big toe here. Then what you do is you get the tripod down and the foot down. This basically cocks the foot into that short extensor position. And now people can start to develop that short extensor. The people who are going to really benefit from this are going to be the people who are in that posturing right there, where they can't find that short. As soon as they pick up the toe, the band pulls them into flexion, and now they can access the short extensor. And then what you do over time is once they start to ingrain that pattern, you start easing up on the amount of band so that now they have to engage the short extensor with the long flexor. And eventually, you keep progressing them out of this until they no longer need the band. And when they lift the toe up, they should be able to get into the short extensor and the long extensor.